warm welcome to a panel discussion that we are going to have on continuous delivery and what does it take, what are the tenets of continuous delivery, and what it takes to achieve with some real life use cases and use cases from our panel today. So first I would want to introduce our panel first. So first off, Steven from Forrester.
Hi everyone. My name is Steven Yeh. I currently serve as the Director of Enterprise Architecture at Forrester Research. Forrester Research, as you may know, we're one of the leading technology advisory companies out there. And titles really mean a lot of different things in every company, I'm sure. In my case, I look after development of various applications and also integration. And I'm speaking really as a practitioner today and not as the research arm of my company. Agile, I guess, continuous integration is something that is that's been important and close to what we've been doing in the past year. So glad to be here.
Great, great. Naga, do you want to go next?
My name is Naga Vinnakota. So I'm from the SunPower Corporation. So I'm heading the operations group at the SunPower. We actually implemented continuous delivery model just a few months back. So basically, it's like a 6+ months. At SunPower, basically, for people who doesn't know us, it's a solar manufacturing and technology company. We are named for the delivering high efficiency solar panels. We have 30 years of innovation experience with solar panels. And we are well positioned across the globe with a diversified experience from the residential rooftops to utility scale power plants. And at SunPower, our vision is to change the way the world is powered. So this means basically it's a lot of change, right? And we want to be the choice for the change at SunPower. And if you think today's digital world is all about change, and I believe business and IT has to transform to compete and put in alignment with this change to make this happen along with the continuous changing needs and the technology needs. So at SunPower, actually, for our Salesforce platform, what we did is we actually moved out of the longer development cycles to shorter, frequent release cycles to meet these changing demands. So with the recent AutoRABIT as accelerator, so which actually helped us to move from the no version control to continuous innovation at SunPower.
Great. Excellent. Next up is Ram from Schneider Electric.
Hi everyone, I'm Narayan Iyer. I work for Schneider Electric. Schneider, as you all must have seen yesterday at the keynote, we are a global specialist in energy management. We are spread across 100 countries in the world with a strength of about 1,600 plus employees globally. We have a fairly large implementation of Salesforce, which we use for the CRM in Schneider. And it's a single org with about 40,000 users internally and about 160,000 users, partner users globally, which we also plan to increase to about 1 million over the couple of years. So I particularly am a lead architect, and I would have to, I'm primarily responsible for the delivery and the architecture of the Force.com platform, and I'm also leading the agile transformation for the Force.com platform. So what we are trying to do in Schneider is kind of move all our applications more towards agile and do faster releases and faster delivery. And CI is now a key piece for us because we want to move all our Salesforce.com applications to continuous integration in order to be able to deliver faster.
Great. And last but not the least, we have Harshit from Jupiter.
Thanks, Vishnu. So my name is Harshit. I'm a senior technical architect at Intuitive Surgical. My responsibilities are primarily to implement Salesforce across the globe for this company, as well as lead other web projects. For those of you who don't know about Intuitive, we are a multi-billion-dollar company based in Sunnyvale, California. We build surgical robots, and Da Vinci is one of the famous robots. We have performed about 300,000 surgeries around the globe by far. We are fairly new to Salesforce. We got about 1,200 user license, so we went live in January 2016. And our intention was to cut down the systems and bring Salesforce as one single source of communication. So with that, it came a lot of challenges for us because when the company is excited, people are excited, they want to engage the customer in different ways. So we want a rapid cycle, and then we went through so many challenges in development, and we need a continuous integration. So we can talk more about this, but I'm going to hand it back to you.
Absolutely. So thanks, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. So the idea was to kind of give you a sense of the scale of operations, the complexity of operations. Obviously, we dig down more into the continuous delivery aspect of it. So essentially, again, there are various components. Obviously, we do not want to boil the entire ocean and discuss everything here in the limited time that we have. But essentially, what we're doing is we will kind of touch base and talk a little bit about their experiences on version control, and then on release management, and finally bring it all home with continuous delivery. So before we start off shooting some questions to the panelists, so just from a show of hands, how many in the room have version control either enabled or in their environments right now? Wow, that's great. And just so you know, about 2 years back, when we did our first session, there were only 10% of the hands actually went up. So it's really awesome. So now getting to the next one, for example, how many of you have heard of continuous delivery or continuous integration? And if the people can keep the hands up who have implemented continuous integration? Awesome. So about 20-25%, which is great. So that's the maturity of the Salesforce ecosystem. It has really accelerated, and this is the hot topic of 2016 and definitely 2017. So we'll start off with the first, again, the first set of questions in terms of the panelists, in terms of Steven, in terms of, can you throw some, shed some light in terms of what you have seen, some of the challenges that you faced, and what your achievements are on version control?
Absolutely. Version control, as I can see now, everybody practically raised their hand on at least understanding the need for version control. In my context, two things are driving this thing. Salesforce, being kind of proud of this declarative configuration thing, really kind of opens up the door to a wide range of people doing development, right? So the admins are encouraged to make changes and whatnot. So now you have a wide range of people and skills and background coming into the development environment. We call them citizen developers. A lot of people doing this. It introduces a whole lot of complexity in it. And also with kind of advent of Agile methodology, which we've also been running Agile for about 5-6 years. Certainly faster pace, faster cycle, shorter cycle, and just more deployment. Having version control is absolutely important. The challenge that we have is it is kind of pretty much like all of you guys, I'm assuming, that you probably have implemented something, either some sort of homebrew solution to put together GitHub or other things together. But version control is so easy to be broken if they just kind of fall back to, oh, let me just check stuff in and just deploy things out. And it's an easy thing to break, a pretty fragile thing, unless we have a very easy system to that you're deploying out there for people to follow.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's very well put in terms of where you are from. You are present, very involved systems, in fact. So, especially getting those button-click admins, which is kind of really useful to get them on to version control. So, Naga, if you can share your thoughts.
Sure. I think in my experience, the biggest challenge we face as version control is identifying the right branching model. So there is no one single model that works for everybody, right? So we need to try out a couple of different models. So it takes time. We need to be really patient in trying different models that works, and then we go with the retrospectives and we understand how gauge where you are with that model. Is it satisfying your needs? If not, then we change the model a bit. So basically that's the biggest one. So if you are able to identify the right model that suits to your delivery model and business needs, I think that's the biggest success, I think, in the version control. And the second one is, like Steve mentioned, Salesforce is easy to change, right? So in your team, you will have a different mindset and different type of development experience with the people. So some people who comes from the software development background, they are well versed with version control. And people who comes with the Salesforce, who grew inside the Salesforce, they may not have much experience with these version controls, and they are tempted to make changes quickly into the production. And for them, this is like a bottleneck. You guys are stopping us making a change, then what's the advantage of Salesforce, right? So you get to answer so many questions. So you need to make sure all the team, all the end users of your version control are fully trained before you make an attempt to put the tool in place. That's my...
Now, as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. With great technology comes great its own challenges. So, Ram, do you want to go next?
Yeah, for us, I agree with most of what they said. But for me, I think there was one step even before all this is how do you get your code into version control in the first place, right? Because now, say the thing about Salesforce is there are 1,000 IDEs available, integrated development environments, where you can actually do your development. You can use Eclipse or Sublime, Maven's Mate, How ID. There are a bunch of them. And there's of course the Salesforce developer console as well. But we and different developers were accustomed to using different IDEs, and we did not want to restrict users or developers to use one or the other. And the reason for that was, I mean, they would come from different development backgrounds, and some are new developers, some are seasoned developers. They have different varied levels of experience, and they're comfortable with different IDEs. That's number one. And the other was, there is also, I mean, each IDE has its own advantages and disadvantages, and there are there are times when you need to flip from one to another. So we did not want to mandate a single IDE and have that integrated with Git or whatever. So we wanted to give the developers the flexibility to use what they want. That is number one. And number two was, mostly when we're talking of IDE and development, we're only talking of code, Apex and Visual Force. But what about the configuration, which sometimes is about 50% of what you're actually doing or actually developing? So how do you get the configuration in? That was key. I mean, if you're creating an object or a field, validation rules, workflow rules, etc., that actually forms a major part of any application development. So getting that in was key, and I think we worked with AutoRABIT, and getting the easy commit feature was actually a fantastic thing, which helped solve most of these issues.
Sure. Just to give you a sense of our work with RAM also was that what we saw was version control was not easy for admins or even some of the developers. So ideally what we did along with Schneider was just provide one particular button, and especially they had a pretty large team of about 100 developers, so that had to be onboarded. So provided one button so that they can kind of get onboarded very quickly.
Yeah, and that's a good point actually. I mean, about the size of the team, we have about 100 developers actually, 75 and some admins. So and they come with varied levels of experience, right? So it's very difficult to you know, bring in a change of this kind without disrupting most of the development that's ongoing. So we wanted to give something which could be less disruptive and let the development go as is.
Yeah, I think maybe what summarizes it is for button click admins, we have a button click version control. So that's what I think is a good way to kind of go.
I can add on to this one as well. So I mean, we are also like 50 plus member team. So we have an operations team who are actually pure admins who are not at all well versed with version control. I mean, I tried my best to provide required trainings and set up a process and stopping the change from the entire operations for a couple of weeks. Again, that's a big battle. I mean, I have to face with the business. So, but I couldn't make them adopted to the tool. So this one button click from the AutoRABIT actually helped these teams to get on board with the version control. So my operations team, entire team, actually started using the AutoRABIT. One button click, easy. I think it's easy check-in process, easy commit. And all the development teams are actually, they are members of the version control. So we're able to bring them using the different tools. So we standardize those tools for them, and they are actually good with the tools. So it's a combination of both easy and the standard tools we are able to bring everybody.
Absolutely. And Harshit, any thoughts? And one of the other things is, I think from a panel also we have different teams. So 130 people in Schneider, about 30, 40 in Sunbar, and so on and so forth. So,
sure. So for as I mentioned that we went live in January. So last year we were most of the time investing our developers' time into development. And the key challenge that I can summarize up here is we got challenges in two different things. One is the developer flow. Defining a developer flow is a key challenge. Say, for example, you have one sandbox with some data and you're developing across the team. You have a few teams here and then there's the outsource to other countries. The one sandbox challenge is that people step on each other's toe. And then it's hard to control what's going on, and then you need a GitHub or something similar to put a control over there. So to solve that puzzle, we gave one sandbox each developer, but now they go out of sync easily. One guy commits, other guys, hey, this guy's running ahead of me. So bringing that control and bringing one single, defined flow was first of the biggest challenge. And second challenge was a little bit about defining your releases. So since in our company we went live, so people were excited and they want more and more features. So we have to rapidly deploy the things. So we have some hot fixes that we do day to day, but we have quarterly, monthly, and other releases coming. So how do you define your the releases flow is another something important part to be considered, because it turned out to be a big challenge for us without thinking about this upfront. So those are the few points I would like to mention, but I'll hand it back to you for the next ones.
Great. So the next topic was, again, we're doing a quick fire round just to kind of ensure that we cover a lot of different topics, especially on continuous delivery. The next one is release management. So if anyone curious, maybe Steven again, if you can go and go first, that would be great.
Sure. I think the truth is it's hard for me to think of things like version control as a thing on its own. It's like baseball, you round the bases. If you don't come all the way around to deploying something, you cross out home plate. If you don't do that, it doesn't quite scratch the itch. To me, release management, people may have different definitions again, is more comprehensive than that. It's continuously delivering something through the lower environment, in our case, like a development environment, an integrated testing environment, the UAT environment, all the way to production. Those things, and also another thing a couple of other things I was throwing there. One is environment management. We have applications like a CPQ application. It's very, very dependent on metadata. If you don't have the right products, the right pricing rules, right everything else, the app does not work. And when you are in development cycle, you need to replicate that set of metadata in all lower environments so that people can do their job in developing something. It's super critical. I think that rolls under kind of the release management as well, this sandbox or environment management thing too. And also on a higher scale, I think we also are trying to integrate our application lifecycle management system. So for example, we take a story, every developer will take a story through its phases, through its statuses, and all the way into, if it goes into complete, for example, it will then get deployed out to something else. That integration from any tool that you have is priceless, right? So you don't have to be constantly setting your statuses on your story, on your ticket. It's all integrated. I think the integration of everything end to end, we'll get to CI/CD later on. That really is the goal that we've been striving for this past year that we've been on this journey.
I agree with Steven. So basically, make sure you have the environment strategy in place along with the release management. Right? So without right sandbox structure and the plan, I think. And also, we need to have a unified release approach for all sort of changes we push to the production. Right? So because we have various types of changes we define in Salesforce environment, like a quick admin changes, or business critical changes for all your P1, P2s to have a different process, and all the regular release cycles. So make sure you have the single one unified approach. So that will make your life easier. And also, you need to have right strategy in place for the sync back strategies. After you go to the production, how do we do what are the environments, how do we do the back sync to the other environments? And also, make sure you have the data migration plan in place. So once you have these things, I think the release management will be smooth.
Sure. And yeah, I think soon we'll talk more in detail about their architecture. We've got some very interesting slides coming up, we'll talk to them, but just from a release management standpoint, Ram, do you want to kind of take a stab at it?
Yeah, from a release management, again, like they said, I think environment management is key. Getting your right set of environments, understanding how your development is going to be structured, how are you going to move to SIT, UAT, production, etc. But another thing also is that is key is the governance and the segregation of duties, right? So how do you ensure that your developers don't do anything outside what they're supposed to do? We earlier used to, we never had a dedicated release management team as such. So what we would do typically is we would have the developers do the deployment as well. And that was very dangerous for us because, somewhere down the line, when you're in UAT and there are critical issues, the developer is highly tempted to just come in and make the change directly in UAT simply because he had access. And we call that flexibility in a way, but it's at the end of the day very dangerous, because at the end of the day, when we had to finally go live, we would scamper around trying to figure out, okay, what changed where, and no one has a clue, and with a development team of the size of 75 people, it's impossible to keep track. So I think the governance is very, very important, and it's very important that you have control for a very limited set of users who govern what goes into which sandbox. And the developers are purely restricted only to the changes that they make on the development platform, on the development sandboxes.
Great.
So, and I agree with a couple of these points, and again, if you're always big like hips, in that case, you have to have a dedicated team, but in our case, we have a certain set of developers and few admins, so we don't have a dedicated team to completely work on deployments. So you have to wear multiple hats during your job. For that, the key challenge again for us, and I'm going to kind of rhyme up on the same thing, is the environment management is the biggest thing. You can deploy the configuration, but the deployment of the code and managing multiple environments together has always been a challenge. So in our case, we have a set of administrators who we want, as an architect, I want this team to learn everything about not just the development and admin, but also to release the thing. And it was a tough thing for them to learn GitHub, go to the terminal, check in, check out code, and they don't understand the branching mechanism, and they say, you know what, I like drag and drop. So what I'm doing, change set, is easy for me. But now, I mean, defining the one flow and you're wearing multiple hats, we want them to learn. So it was a difficult path for us to follow this path. But thanks to AutoRABIT, they helped us a lot and gave a better UI where you can pull up the commits and then deploy it easily with the easy commits. Another challenge I like to talk about quickly about release management is if you give one sandbox to one developer, they often complain about having no data in their sandbox when they refresh. So that's another challenge that we always go through when you give one sandbox to each developer, and then they say, I have no data in my sandbox. So you've got to make sure that they're not jumping into other people's box and then writing the code there and getting it out. You may have to change the flow if it's a smaller company. It's a dynamic process, but I think so once you define the guideline and the process, I think it's easier to follow from there. So that's what we learned.
Basically, we need to define the roles and responsibilities clearly. So it's not about like you having a release team or a development team, right? Not every company can really afford to have like that many teams. So if we have right roles and responsibilities, I think that will suffice this one.
In our case, we also did was actually, and initially when we defined the flow, we had people jumping in the UAT and making a small change because they forgot. So I was like, oh, what the hell is that? Why you did that? So it's a blame game going on. Then we define as, okay, these developers will have a set of profiles, so they cannot change their fixed code. We restricted them, and then give few people the training that they can only deploy. But we keep on changing the responsibilities so that people know all kind of job. Just to, if somebody leaves, you can still move.
Yeah, and just further on to your point about the sandboxes, one developer having his own sandbox, we actually had a technical challenge with that because, like you said, we need data. And the kind of data that we have in Schneider is way beyond a developer sandbox can handle. So we were actually restricted with, I mean, we actually need a config sandbox for the development environment. And we don't have that many, so we didn't have that flexibility. Plus, it also adds to further complexities, which I thought we get to over the next slide.
Sure. Yeah, it's good to have some laughter in a very technical session, so it's great. So yeah, a common theme, and we have seen over and over again, one definitive thing that has to be done for release management is assign a release manager. It might be a developer, or it might be an admin, or it might be somebody who kind of understands the environment a little bit. So without that, we have seen over and over the challenges are always there; they do not go anywhere. So now, finally, we are coming to to continuous delivery. So again, each of our panelists, they have shared their obviously with some lot of approval process that has gone through. They're able to kind of share some of their insights into not just what they do, but their overall continuous delivery architecture also. So I would kind of request panelists one after another to just take some time to kind of give a sense of what your learnings were and what challenges that you faced in each of your implementations from a integration and continuous delivery standpoint. So, Steven, if you can go first.
Thank you. In a nutshell, on a kind of 30,000-foot level, this is what we ended up implementing. Three separate tracks or paths to production, if you would. I'll start with the middle one. Middle one is the day-to-day maintenance and what we call small RFPs. That happens, within an iteration cycle. For us, that happens to be 3 weeks. So, development environment. So we happen to have a common development environment as opposed to each developer having a personal sandbox. That just happens to be our model. So, controlled by kind of our ticketing system, which happens to be IBM RTC, that they check in changes into the dev environment. And nightly, this is the core of it, right, as opposed to the continuous integration thing. Nightly, the process will take it and put it into the int environment, integrated testing, if you would. There, if it passes the test, the criteria, there's no error, and it will continue on to the test environment for UAT. So that process is, right now, pretty much hands-off. It happens with the tool. We're here because we all kind of use AutoRABIT as a tool. But I think the overall sense is that it's actually possible that this continuous integration idea, if you're living in the world of AntScript and Jenkins, you know this. It's a whole lot of maintenance, a whole lot of tweaking scripts all the time, and if something blows up and you're stuck, and your adoption rate just plummeted and it dropped because people, it's always so easy to just fall back to a quick change setup, deploy it myself. But this main track will take us all the way up to test, continuously and automatically. We choose to have the last step go into production as a manual step, but again, with the help of the tool, AutoRABIT. So that process, for example, collecting your changes and your components and everything together, it used to be a much longer process, but now, with automation, it's like 15-minute process. The deployment itself still takes the same amount of time, how the deployment says. But that process of collecting the changes and deploying out to production, much, much simpler. I'll go right to the right track, which is our long-term project. So that's what the DevLT means, long-term. So we have projects obviously that can run multiple iterations and releases and whatnot, quarters. And so those changes go up its own track to the int LT, test LT. And say a quarter later when that's ready to go, and that green line takes it back into the main track. And that final iteration or so will be the UAT, right? So it truly merged and truly, we're testing it against a production set of codes. So that's how that comes around. Initially, when we're designing this whole thing, we also thought of hotfixes, right? The track on your left. And that was pretty anxiety-producing, I would say, because it just, everything there could be volatile. It could be just out of control. But we knew we needed something like that. But as we kind of went into this automation process, one thing that we learned is actually, if you have the right tool, the tool can actually manage a lot of that stuff, just moving specific changes out from our middle track, the regular maintenance track, and kind of surgically removing things and just kind of plugging it into production. And because of that ease of operation on that level, we actually don't have a hotfix environment anymore. It's just not needed. So that's our main track, and then on the side, there's a dotted line. Every now and then, every release or so, major release, we would then obviously refresh the environments down to reset all environments. And it's also a good practice to do code merges, and those are painful. I know you're all dreading it. We don't like it either, but that's kind of a necessary evil that we do have to do every now and then. But that completes the cycle for us with automation.
Thanks, Steven. So, yeah, and I know it was a very complex diagram, so simplification takes more effort than a complex diagram. So I know that each of these installations are pretty big. So so next up, Naga.
So to me, continuous delivery is basically the ability to bringing the ability to move these changes and the resolutions we make to the production quickly. Right? So I don't believe in many environments, long-running release cycles. So we tried release-based approaches at Stanford. So now actually, this is actually what you see here is the first step to our continuous delivery and CI model. So we moved out of the release lines. So we are making all the developers working on the features which we assign to them regardless of the release. So we want to take out the release pressure out of it. So basically everybody develops their own features, and then we actually integrate them directly into the trunk. So there is no release pressure. Everybody knows when the change is going in, but there is no guarantee that the release, this is the release, this feature might go in, right? So it's a continuous integration. So we are making that happen here, right? Because to be continuous delivery actually can happen with three things. Number one, you need to have a right version control. Number two, you need to do the continuous integration. That means all the changes has to go to main trunk instead of the release cycles. And number three, you need to have the automation in place. So I'm putting the automation at my integration layer. So majority of the smoke tests, whatever the P1 platinum or gold or P1 features you want to call, those will be automatically tested at the integration level. So then we make a decision. What's the certified feature you want to get putting onto the release? So now I can define my release cycle, whether it can be a daily, or it can be a weekly, or it can be monthly. It doesn't matter. Release can be on demand, right? So that's the model we are looking at. So development on cadence and release on demand. But right now what you see there is actually I still have two more environments in my release cycle after I make a decision to put it onto the release, UAT and staging. And as a next step, we are actually moving towards the test-driven development. That means I'm removing the staging environment which you see as a pre-production out of the release cycle, putting that as a QA cycle into my after integration. So that means I'm planning to do the complete performance and functional testing, everything before I actually bring the feature onto the release. So that means my release is only very lean now. It's just a UAT environment, and I can do with any skill.
Yeah, that's great. Especially release on demand is something that a lot of organizations, a lot of managers have been kind of dreaming about or doing about, trying to kind of do it. So next up is Schneider, and Ram can kind of walk us through.
Yeah. So what's different about the way we've structured it in Schneider is if you really look at it. I go back to what I had said earlier about the development environment being just one. So if you look at this, what you see on the left is actually two different releases which are running in parallel. But the thing is, for each release, we have only one development environment. But the way we actually differentiate between the different features that are being developed is, although all the developers are working in one environment, we make them check into different branches. So that is kind of different from the regular way of how a typical sandbox environment would be managed. So we would have them check into different branches of Git, and it is the responsibility of track leads or specific architects to review and do the part of merging into integration. Now, one thing, like Steve mentioned, is the merging is actually very critical, and it's one of the most painful things that we have to do. It's usually downplayed a lot, but it's one of the main pain areas that we face every day. And I think the rest of it is more or less aligned with what everyone else is doing. So from the part piece on integration to other environments and pre-prod and production is more or less automated using continuous integration.
Great, thanks Ram. So last but not the least again, Harshit, and a little bit about your learnings and what challenges you faced with your CA.
Sure. As you can see, our environment looks a little different. We got one developer sandbox per developer. And basically, we have one integration box here behind the GitHub, that cat. So that's one integration box where all the developers develop and develop their code in the box and submit to GitHub. And GitHub, from there, we push our code to one integration box. In the GitHub, we have primarily branching mechanism. To give you a quick view, we have hotfix where we do day-to-day fix, and then we have feature naming for the feature, like feature would be feature 1, feature 2, feature X. So we have feature branch, we have hotfix branch, that stays in GitHub. Once the code gets into GitHub, the developer can actually set a pull request, and whoever be the admin or a code reviewer can review the code from there. From here, once that code is in the GitHub, now the part comes is where how do you deploy to the other boxes. So your integration box, queue, and production. So that's where we put AutoRABIT into place. And with the AutoRABIT, we can pull those commits. So now the flow is coming from individual box to integration box, and with the AutoRABIT, we are pulling from GitHub. And once the AutoRABIT pulls a commit, we can use simply easy commits to deploy into their boxes. Now again, this is a relatively simpler org, and I see there's a very complex orgs out here. But we want to come up with a faster way of deploying the things, hotfix and features, fairly early. So that's what we turn out after multiple iteration, and that's what we learned. That model worked for us.
So thanks, Harshit. So as we have seen, there are 4 different implementations, 4 different organizations, very varied scale. So multi-billion Fortune 50 companies to a smaller company with smaller teams, and challenges have been different. But basically, what all it boils down to is how and what you want to achieve and where you would want to go to. So one of the key things is what we have seen is if you start on the process, if you kind of put your mind up to where it is possible, and there are a lot of tools in the market, AutoRABIT is one of them. And having said that, one of the key things is in terms of, as we have seen, over the last 2 years, even if you see the number of continuous integration or continuous delivery topics or sessions in Dreamforce have gone up about 10 times. So there were about 2 sessions about 3 years back, but now they're at least about 20 or 30. So that gives you a testament in terms of where the company, where the maturity of Salesforce as a platform is going, and where leaders like the panelists here who have kind of taken up this challenge and kind of survived, not just survived, but actually succeeded in on it. So each of our clients are there, but again, just to kind of wind it up, any final thoughts and advice or something that you would want to share with the audience today?
Sure. So I think my advice would be, before you start your journey to CI/CD, make sure you have the environment strategy and also release management strategy, version control strategy in place. Right? Otherwise, you will have a lot of struggle learning as you go. And the second one would be define the maturity model. Right? So with the measurable, phased measurables. so that, and also run retrospectives with each cycle, so that you know. Right? Otherwise, without a maturity model, so we will not be able to proceed. We might end up like, oh, actually, instead of ROI, we actually seeing slowdown.
Okay, so I can give you one-line advice. Plan your landscape, plan your, if you're going with GitHub, Bitbucket, whichever the source code versioning, and plan your releases, whether it's short-term, long-term. If you have the plan, I think it would be a long-term success.
My key advice would be give yourself time to do this. Right?
Patience.
You need a lot of patience, and it's not something you can do overnight. You will have a journey, and you will have to take baby steps because you're going to face issues at every step that you do.
If you're on a similar journey and your diagram for your work industry may be more complex or whatever, I think for me it's absolutely important to make this process as simple as possible. Find that lowest common denominator for all your users, admins, developers, and whatnot. And it's possible. We're a technology organization, right? We can make this happen. And, it's absolutely worth the investment.
Sure. So just a quick note is that I think the recorder, the audio video is not working on this room. If somebody wants the slides, AutoRABIT team is here or the panelists are here for a quick question answer. And we would, I don't know if it will be there in the Dreamforce YouTube channel. Typically they are, but since it's broken, if you want, we can actually provide you some of the details or contacts of our panelists here. Again, thanks a lot, everyone, and thanks for